Hey, help support the show by joining the Patreon or becoming a YouTube member. Also hit that like button to subscribe if you want more Cavs-focused content.
We were right. Okay. First and foremost, I got Tony Pesta on the show, and we want to talk about all the things going on about the Cavs. Well, I just want to say this right here. I might be dragging it. I might be doing a victory lap, but I'm telling you, we were right. And a lot of y'all said some mean stuff to us on the internet about this. We were never, ever off the Evan Mobley trade. We told you that we were out there breaking down the years. So it's like, hey man, you gotta wait until he's 25. Like, you gotta see what this is gonna be in a couple of years. We try to put an NFL timeline. We done had all the conversations. You go back and check the backlogs, both our channels. They're going to be there. We have told you about this Evan Mobley thing. How glorious is it to see it? Like, honestly, it's kind of boring to talk about because he's been doing it so regularly, right? Like, this isn't new. It's not like, oh, Evan drops a 20-point game. It's new. It's like, I don't even talk about Evan anymore when he just gets 20.
Yeah, I would love to just keep taking victory laps, but it's like every game he's just putting up these performances that we've been waiting to see. And it's like, I'm just enjoying it. Like we've been talking about it for a while. Like you said, you could check the backlogs. We got podcasts on top of podcasts talking about this, trying to break down all the little tiny improvements he was making to his game. And now it's just like undeniable. So I'm glad you opened up starting with our victory lap, because you know what?
Yes.
You're right. People said some crazy things. I saw Derek Favors being compared to Evan Mobley, all so it got bad, but right now there's no denying the way he's playing.
Yeah, and it's incredible he's had this amount of offensive growth, because that was the one thing I was concerned, like, hey, are there enough shots for him to make this offensive growth? Kenny Atkinson has figured it out, right? Like, without having to move anybody, he's like, no, we're just going to have nights where we just give Evan Mobley the ball, right? And you see it, they started to do it on like the second night of back-to-backs. They're like, no, we're going to run the offense a lot through Mobley more, so we can rest Donovan and Darius so they don't have to take it big as a load. And then now, I mean, we're just seeing it on a regular basis. He averages 19, 8, and 3. And keep in mind, he almost won Defensive Player of the Year as a second-year player, as a 20-year-old, right? He is still one of the best defensive players in all of basketball, and he's offering you 19, 8, and 3. I think that part gets forgotten, right? Anything that you get offensively out of Jared Allen, we understand is a bonus, and quiet as kept, Jared Allen has added to the bag the last couple of years.
He's gotten better too.
Because like there's some of these shots around the rim, I'm like, oh, those aren't normal hustle big man like layups that he used to get. These are like skill shots that he's able to get around the rim. Now, he's not going to start making jumpers or threes or anything like that, but he's still uber impactful on the defensive end, right? I would say, where would you be at as him as a rim protector? Do you think he gets more blocks than Evan, but Evan is just like, he can be on the whole journey with the guy, but I mean, with Jared Allen, they have him on the perimeter, guarding Shea, right? Like in this game against Oklahoma City, it is incredible the foresight and vision Kobe Altman had to have in order to see all of this through. Because look, we are Evan Mobley people, right? We believed in Evan Mobley. We believed in Jared Allen. We believed in Darius Garland, right? We were bumping. We never thought Donovan Mitchell would go. We are the people who should not be caught off guard by this, right? Like, we believed that what this team was doing against a lot of criticism about how this Cavs team played last year. And even we are like, how do they see this?
Yeah, I didn't see all this happening. We had a lot of faith in them, but this is like your best case scenario and a little bit more. To hit on what you were mentioning right there too, I think one of the underrated aspects of the two big lineup, and part of the reason why we still had faith in it, is that it's not like the Cavs are running out like two, traditional slow-footed. Like, they're not playing Yusuf Nurkic and Valanciunas together. They're playing two pretty versatile, athletic, dynamic bigs. And Jared Allen, he won't get as much credit as some of the other guys, whether it's like Wemby or any of the big men who can actually space the floor. But this dude, like you said, he's hitting skill shots. He's hitting some spin moves around the rim. He's basically an automatic bucket if he catches it in the painted area. And you can't take that for granted. The playmaking is there. You know, he's not Jokic. He's not Sabonis or anything like that. But you can dump the ball into Allen's hands around the elbow or the paint. He's going to make a good read, whether it's the lob to Mobley or spraying it out to the 3-point line. And again, Evan Mobley, he's put it all together on offense. So again, we were hoping that all this would happen, but I don't think any of us expected it all to happen at once, and even better than we imagined.
Yeah, like I think another thing with Jared Allen, he's just gotten stronger, right? Like I think we forgot, since Jared Allen is such an old soul and he wears the afro and he's kind of looked the same since he's come in. And I think he was a 2-year guy, right, coming out of college, right? He wasn't a 1 year.
He might have been, yeah.
Yeah, he definitely feels like a dude who went to 4 years of college, right? So he felt like an older player, but he's not. He's still, 26 years old?
Yeah, let me check right now real quick, because I think he actually might be.
Yeah, he's 26. His birthday is 4/21, right? So like,
still okay, so he's about to be 27. Yeah.
Yes, relatively young guy. And I think he just got better and stronger, right? Like he wasn't having the same issues with Hartenstein this year that he had 2 years ago, right? Where he was able to muscle him out. I think it's obvious that Evan Mobley has gotten stronger. And, hey, look, picked up that weight, that jumper started falling. Hey, people laughed at me at the time. I was dead on about that.
Hey, man, you called it.
I was like, he gained some weight, dog. That jumper's going to start falling because it's smooth. And all of a sudden now, all these questions about the 1 big lineup, the 2 big lineup, it just doesn't matter because, if you got Evan Mobley out there, he's just a 7-foot wing at this point, right? Like you could do a lot there with him, the same way that you could do a lot with somebody like Dean Wade and his importance being there. But the reason I wanted to bring you on, Tony, is I wanted to talk about what this team reminds you of from a historical standpoint. What have you seen before? That's a hard comp to get to with this team because they're doing a lot new and old at the same time. And it's crazy to say that like the original Warriors run stuff is old, but I guess it was over 10 years ago. So like when you watch this team, what do you see?
Yeah, so I'm gonna hijack the question just for a second. I will give you an answer, I promise. But before we get into the comparisons, I do think we got to start by just talking about what makes them so unique. Right now, they have a higher win percentage than the 2015-16 Warriors did. So at this point in the season, they have the highest win percentage in NBA history. We'll see how that plays out. Will they win 73, 74? We'll keep an eye on it, but the season doesn't end in January, right? There's still 40 games to play, but it is worth keeping in mind. They are on pace to be the best regular season team in league history. So I want to start off by saying I don't want to hear any comparisons to the damn 2015 Atlanta Hawks, okay? That Hawks team, they won 60 games. It's respectable. They had a good season. The Cavs are on pace to win 70. So let's not act like this is comparable. All right, we moved past that. Now I know we're going to talk
what 3 players. The Cavs have 3 players that are averaging over whatever the highest guy on that team was.
Dude, that Hawks team, I don't mean to disrespect them, but their leading scorer averaged 16 points per game. They had 4 All-Stars and they were all averaging 15. They had a good season, but we need to move on from that comparison.
It was T. Korver, Al Horford, and
Paul Millsap led them in scoring at 16. Yeah. Korver averaged 12 points per game, and he was their 4th All-Star. Things are a little different in Cleveland. Is all I'm going to say.
This is different. This is way different than that.
Yeah, so that's where I wanted to start off because they're playing in a league of their own right now, and they're one of the most unique teams we've seen because you kind of mentioned it. They're playing kind of a new style and an old style. It's almost like they've blended some of those key components of even you can go back as far as the 80s, 90s with the 2 big lineup, but then you add the space and pace that we're seeing with this current team. And so, you pair Evan Mobley and Jared Allen, who I've already mentioned are pretty versatile bigs, despite not really, Allen's not a 3-point shooter. Mobley's had a little bit of a leap in that department, but you pair them with the high scoring, electric, modern backcourt of Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell, plus the 3-point shooters all around them. And you have this blend of 90s and 2010s basketball, all with elite team chemistry. and the ball movement. So when you wrap that all up, it's just they're playing at such a high level that very few teams have even come close to sniffing in the NBA. So I wanted to start off by saying we're gonna compare them to other teams, but this Cavs team is unique and we should appreciate it.
Yeah, in like 10 years, somebody's gonna be like, this reminds me of the 2024 Cavs team, right? like, because I don't know how old you are, but when I was coming out of high school, right? Like the Spurs dominated everything, and then it was like, okay, we rolled into the Warriors as far as like how an organization is built, what system works outside of just having the best player in the league, right? And this has like a lot of those tall tale signs of like that 20, like I think that's what I went to earlier. It reminded me of the 2014. Was that the one that won the chip? 2013. 2013 Spurs, right? The baby Kawhi, the end of Tim Duncan, but he was still pretty useful. I think Manu was still on the team. I think Patty Mills played a role on that squad as well. Yeah.
He's a little Ty Jerome-esque.
Like they have the depth and the overall kind of like selflessness philosophy of that team. I remember it being like LeBron was hilarious when he came back to Cleveland because like that Spurs team whipped his ass, and then he came back to Cleveland and he tried to run the Spurs system, which like I think we forget about that because that was like the first like half before he got rid of Dion Waiters, and just imagine trying to run that system with Dion Waiters in your back. It's
not
ultimate
happening.
Ball stopper. But they were trying to run that system. I remember he was like in the huddle before the first game against New York. He's like, we're going to give up a good shot for a great shot. And then Dion Waiters took 20 bad shots. And I was like,
Dion Waiters has never seen a shot that isn't a great shot to him.
Dion Waiters is like, I am the great shot. Yes.
He's like, you get the ball to me, that's the great shot.
Look, I don't think Dion Waiters will ever get honored by the Cavs, but he definitely needs to be on the pregame show, right? Like that is a peak pregame show guy, right? We gonna bring Dion in, like and make him
we
feel
haven't heard
whole.
enough from him in recent years. We need to get him in the media space.
Yeah. Look, best 2K voiceover of all time. But
he's got to work on that.
And people forget, like the Warriors stuff kind of stemmed from that, right? Because Steve Kerr I don't think he was associated with the Spurs at that specific time, but he was a player under Pop. He was working at TNT. This makes me feel old. Okay.
He used to be on the broadcast.
Yeah, he was working at TNT at the time. I think he used to be a GM, right? He was a GM of the Suns.
Yeah, I believe so.
Which is another team. If you watch it, like there's some similarities there with like Steve Nash and I know old man in the three loves to bring this up where he's like, that's Darius Garland's new age Steve Nash take, right?
Yeah.
It is this like mix of like, okay, the Warriors used to do this, but I think the influence is like kind of coincidentally the Warriors, because I think it starts with like, oh, this worked with the Spurs, right? Way back in the day when Mike Budenholzer was there. And then Mike Budenholzer is who Kenny got some of that influence from too, because Kenny worked under him and then he also worked under Kerr. So it's like this like mix mash of that. Plus it's like molding it to what you already have, where it's like, yeah, they kind of use Evan like Draymond, which I heard. Did you watch the ESPN segment where Stephen had to explain that Draymond used to actually make those threes?
No, it used to be a little bit of a floor spacer, you know?
Yeah. I was like, I remember I was looking through these records. I was like, God damn, Harrison Barnes. I forgot about him. Like,
hey, he's still hooping. He's still out there for San Antonio. But yeah, he used to. Those old Warriors teams, man. You look at those rosters. You get like Barbosa, Andrew Bogut, David Lee was on that first team. It's like you forget.
Because like it wasn't emphasized at the time, but it was like they were doing what was successful with the Spurs, but they were morphing that around the fact that they had two of the best shooters of all time, or at least two really good shooters at that point. They didn't know that about Steph and Clay at that point.
They were starting to find out.
They started to figure it out really fast though, right? But they were morphing it around that and this like this piece that made him so versatile in Draymond Green, who could space the floor, he could play defense through 1 to 5. And they kind of morphed it with that. And it's like this amalgamation. You're going to find, if you look through NBA history, that there are just multiple versions of the system that have worked before. Because this is good basketball. This is the good basketball system to me, where I'm like, yeah, if you have really good basketball players and like a coach gets to have his dream of having like egoless players who do what the coach wants them to do, this is what every coach wants to run. Right. Every offensive minded coach is like, no, I want this. I want guys who are going to pass the ball like this, see the floor like this. And it makes sense that Katie Atkinson like literally sprinted to take this job because he saw the opportunity as clear as anybody else. Right. And it's good on Kobe for seeing the vision there too. It's like, oh no, this dude knows how to get this going. I would love to know what that interview was like, because I want to know who Kenny sees this team closer to. Right. Is it more in that like Spurs version of it? The Golden State kind of version of it. There's probably some of what they did in Atlanta there, but like not all of that is there. But the thing about those teams, right? We mentioned it. It's the death of those teams that gets forgotten because we're talking about Steph, Clay, Draymond, but those weren't top heavy teams in Golden State or in San Antonio. San Antonio had a deep bench. The Warriors bench was infamous at the time. Well, not like infamous for a bad reason, but this was like infamous to stop because they had that Sean Livingston, Mo Spades, Andre Iguodala coming off, and like they had so many guys to throw at you. And it's hilarious because like half those guys were on the Cavs the year before the Warriors blew up. But they had that bench to throw at you that I think people forgot. David West, golly. Whew. Those teams,
they had so many pieces, man. And that's a really good point, because it is the depth too. It's not just, this isn't a heliocentric offense. This isn't like Donovan Mitchell completely carrying the team, which is really funny. I know we talked about this earlier, but like the narrative has shifted so quickly because all of a sudden a lot of these big NBA national media guys, and really just people who talk about the league in general, whether it's, actual media members or just, the independent blog sphere and stuff like that, they actually watched a couple Cavs games and they realized, oh, wait a second. Like Donovan Mitchell's not just carrying them. This is actually like, they might have 4 all-stars on this team. The Dean Wade is really good. Karis LeVert's playing really good. It was like, this is an entire team effort. The chemistry's on point. And I think you really hit on it with saying like, we're going to compare them to different teams, but this is like a long lineage of teams that you could take shades from the Warriors, the Spurs, the 2004 Pistons, that Steve Nash Suns teams. It's like you can just look and find all these different teams that, kind of have shades of what we're seeing the Cavs do. And I understand most people are going to immediately jump to those Warriors teams because they're the most recent team that comes to mind. We literally have remnants of those Warriors teams because of Kenny Atkinson leading the charge now. And then we've had quotes. I know you did a video on this already, from Draymond, Kenny Atkinson himself, Steve Kerr, other media members, all comparing this team to that Warriors squad. And we don't have Steph or Clay. No one does. But the Cavs are playing with a lot of those core fundamentals of just saying, we're going to blitz teams from the 3-point line. Right now, they lead the NBA in 3-point percentage. And I want to focus on that for a second, because I think this is an important distinction. Because, let's be clear, the Warriors were not just chucking up 3-point shots. They were not the James Harden Rockets. They were not this current Celtic style where you're just spamming 3-pointers every trip down. You were generating clean, efficient 3-pointers. And that's what the Cavs are doing right now. It doesn't feel like they're just chucking them up there. The Warriors, they blended volume with efficiency better than any other team ever. And right now, the Cavs are putting themselves in that conversation because at this current pace, they're on track to be the first team in NBA history to shoot above 40% on 40 or more 3-point attempts per game. And that's because Darius and Donovan are shredding the defense each night. But you also have Mobley and Allen playmaking at a high level for their positions. Mobley, especially, the fact that he's able to attack from above the break and get to the middle of the floor rather than trying to, create something from the baseline or the dunker spot. Like, he's unlocked everything. And then look, there's 6 rotational players on this team shooting above 40% from the 3-point line. So it's been a perfect storm for this squad.
Yeah. And it's almost poetic that you mentioned the 3-point attempts. Could you tell me who the Cavs are sandwiched in between when it comes to 3-point attempts in the NBA right now?
Ooh, I'm gonna say probably Boston, somewhere in there, and then I'm kind of blanking. Doesn't Chicago take a bunch of threes and then they miss a lot too? I don't know. Who are they in between?
So you got number 1 and 2. Chicago is number 2.
Okay.
Boston is number 1 at 50 attempts a game. Number 2 is 44.
Yeah, it's wild. They get them up there no matter what.
Yeah, they're just gonna shoot that shit. No, the Cavs are sandwiched in between. The Warriors are ahead of them at 41.5.
Okay.
The Cavs are at 40.4. Behind them, the San Antonio Spurs at 40.1.
Well, there we go. There's our two comps. It's crazy. And again, so where do they rank in 3-point attempts per game?
3-point attempts, they are what? 5th in the NBA at 3-point
Okay.
attempts.
So yeah, it's like they're taking a lot of threes, but they're not just shot chucking, and they're doing it at the most efficient rate in the NBA. And I think that's important when we talk about, those Warriors teams and comparing them to that, because this Cavs team, it's such a well-oiled machine on offense. They are like the ball movement. We've talked about their chemistry, but the thing is, the ball movement is like there are no wasted movements. There's no wasted dribbles. There's absolutely no ego on this team, whether it's Donovan Mitchell against OKC having that really poor shooting night. And he could have easily in the fourth quarter said, hey, I don't care if I'm 3 for 16 or whatever he was. Like, I'm the closer. I'm sealing the deal on this one. No, he said, I'm going to play off ball. I'm going to be a decoy. Darius is cooking. I believe in Evan Mobley. Max Strus is cooking. I'm just going to try to get my teammates open by being an off-ball decoy or like driving and kicking. And you don't see that very often in the NBA. It's so rare that you get a leader like Donovan Mitchell who has no problem sacrificing his touches to get his other guys going. And it's paid off in a big way.
Here's how I know Kenny Atkinson is like a really good coach. He got me out here like, hey man, we need to put George Niang in.
I know, right? It's wild what he's done.
I'm like, he put George Niang at the 4, and I'm like, that shit works. I can't believe it. Like he's making threes, he's driving to the hoop. I'm like, I'm just in disbelief. Like, it's one thing, okay, Karis LeVert, you've done that before, Candy. I know that you know how to make that work. Jared Allen, okay, cool. You're getting the most out of Evan Mobley. We think Evan Mobley is a future superstar. So, like, good. You should be able to get the most out of Evan Mobley. Dean Wade, all he's needed is help. But, dog, getting
Niang.
productive minutes out of George Niang, get that man the coach of the year. Like,
right.
Like, right now. That is his biggest thing where I'm like, he has found a way to get productive time out of literally anybody he's needed to get minutes out of, right? Ty Jerome needs to see more minutes. There was that part where, like, I think the Cavs were out pretty much all their backcourt except for, like, Darius Garland. They needed Ty Jerome to come in and start. He was able to figure that out, get some productive time out of Ty Jerome. We're just sitting around like, oh, my God, Ty Jerome's really good. And now it's time for, like, Max Strus to be really useful, right? And all of a sudden, Max Strus is back to being really useful. And I'm like, yeah, he makes sense. You can't move that guy because, like, he's also part of that equation that you can have there with, like, Isaac Okoro, Dean Wade, Karis LeVert, these guys who are twos at heart when you look at, like, what their offensive game is. But defensively, they have enough length and size to be versatile enough to kind of provide you that stretch role. And, like, Dean Wade, one of the biggest things that he provides, and this is going to sound silly when I say it, but, like, them long rebounds don't get away from you because Dean Wade is on the court, right? Like, that happened so much when they were playing like those small ball lineups or without any of these wings, is that they would get these long rebounds and then they would create an offensive rebound for the other team. Now they're able to just straight up end those possessions, and he could do a really good job of denying on cross-court passes, which was killing the Cavs versus the Atlanta Hawks, right? Like, the fact that these passing lanes were just unclogged for those teams. This team is like, it reminds me that, like, yeah, you can look through history and come up with things that have worked in the past, and that is one way to have success. But sometimes you just stumble on that new jam, right? Like, we know how to make a successful rap song, but you just came out here and just came out with a whole new genre of it. Because, like, nobody was looking at this. Like, everybody just saw the structural flaws and, like, this has not been done with a championship team before, or at least a true championship contender, where you have a small backcourt and you have a tall but not strong too big lineup, right? And both those bigs can't shoot, quote unquote. Now Evan Mobley can't shoot, so it doesn't really matter anymore. But I also like how Kenny kind of plays it with, like, two different squads, basically. Like, I think that was in play during the Thunder game, where it's like, oh, this is the Donovan and Evan Mobley portion of the game. This is the Jared Allen and Darius Garland portion of the game. And they have so much to pivot to that makes me so confident in them in the playoffs. Because for me, the big question with Boston is, what happens when they have that shooting night, right? and they can't rely on these crazy shots that they take going in, and they get a little cold. Do they have the pivot in them to just do something different if need be? Like if the Cavs just make these shots super difficult, they're not able to make them at the same rate. Maybe they're shooting 33 instead of 35, right? What happens to them? With the Cavs, on like if they have an off shooting night, they have an answer for that. If they're hot shooting, then good luck, right? Good luck trying to defend them, because you could just turn around, take a drink on the bench, and the next thing you know, you're down 15. And their bench is so strong that legitimately it's going to give them so many options in the playoffs when they're going to reduce to 8-man lineups on different counters that they can have based on different things that they go up against. And Kenny's done a good job with that this season. So like, I don't have any worry about his ability to do that in the playoff series.
Yeah, I mean, Kenny has done such a good job of just maximizing, like you mentioned, every single player on the roster. Like literally, you can go down the list, and it feels like basically everyone on the team is having like a career best year. Even the bench guys, Niang, Jerome, Wade. I think Okoro is kind of, not quite at the level of those guys, but he's having a pretty good year too. It's like there's no one on this roster who's struggling. There's no lineup that they put out there that isn't winning their minutes. They're just crushing teams, no matter what combination of the core forward is. If it's Darius and Evan, if it's Darius and Jared, if it's Donovan and Evan, Donovan and Jared, like whoever it is, they're just crushing teams. He's found a way to make this work. I think staggering the core four, again, you forget, like, listen, man, this is the idea of having a core four. Is that for 40, I'm sure I've probably said this on your show before even, I say it all the time, but you get 48 minutes of an elite guard and an elite big man on the floor at all times. And when you're closing games, you have 2 of both. So it's like, it's kind of easy to see how it works out. I know you can pick, gripes with, hey, most teams don't have 2 front court players like this or 2 guards who need the ball, but when it's clicking, it's clicking. And so we're seeing it. The depth has been key. The Cavs, like I said a bunch of times, they move the ball really well. They don't lead the NBA in assists, but they do lead the NBA in vibes. And I think it really does matter how bought in, top to bottom, everyone on this roster is. They believe in each other. They lift each other up. And you can tell they just have fun playing together. And I think that's one aspect of all the teams that we've mentioned and compared them to that is really rare and hard to find. Like the Warriors, they absolutely love playing together. If Clay got hot, everyone on the Warriors was trying to find out, how can we keep Clay going? If Steph has it going, they're all trying to find a way to get him open. Same with the Spurs, same with, those Suns teams, and the Cavs right now, they have found that joy that they're playing with. And when you combine that type of joy with the talent they have across the roster, you get a 73-win pace.
Yeah, you just have a coach's dream right now, right? And it's like, they might not lead the league in assists, but like if there was a rating for smoothness on like how they move the ball, like I would love to know how many hockey assists the Cavs have this year.
Oh, it's got to be super high.
Yeah, it's got to be super high because they just move it so well. And like you could just see it on the face of these defenses. Like the Cavs could win a ton. Like they are on a pace to win 70 games. And like I don't want to talk about as if 70 games is like inevitable because you can never guarantee that, right? But especially you're talking about like how difficult this team is to defend in the regular season. Like who wants to defend that shit on the second night of a back-to-back? Like who's trying to defend it on a Tuesday? Like, and then you got to fly out somewhere on Thursday to Denver and go play. Like nobody, because like they move the ball so well, and these guys are going to be so open that you have to sprint there. But they're so selfless that if you sprint there fast enough, we'll just pass. And they have poise too. There's been a couple times where I'm like, they need to stop passing. This clock's about to expire. Like, nah, we'll find Max Strus.
Yeah,
shot right there.
They had a play like that against Toronto yesterday where I was doing the live stream watching the game, and I'm like, oh, this possession's going nowhere. Like they're passing a little too much. And then like 1 second left on the clock, they make that final extra pass. You're like, oh, it's an open Max Strus 3. I guess it all worked out.
The fascination I have with the media about this one is like, I am old enough to have lived through when people were like, actually, the 2014 Spurs were exciting. Right? Like, because like the Spurs got this tag for being boring, and then you watch the Spurs, you're like, that's fun as shit to watch. Like how they move the ball and like how it's just like you could just play Mozart to it, and it's just like beautiful how they do it. And then like everyone's like, nah, actually, like we need to stop calling them boring. That's actually pretty fun to watch. And then like everybody just forgot that was a thing. And then like the Cavs come up and then everybody kind of rediscovers it because the Cavs are doing like a similar thing. Like I think that's the thing they have closest to that Spurs team is what you felt when they moved that ball, the confidence that they moved that ball within each other and the confidence they have within each other has been significant. Let's talk about Evan Mobley again. I don't even think he has gotten to the point to where this is who he's going to be for the rest of his career. Like, I think he's going to get way better than this. Because he's 23, he's going to turn 24 this year, or did he already turn 23?
He's 23. He'll be 24 in the summer. So after this season.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, I think this is the year where he's just finding out what he can do, right? Like offensively, what his superpowers are going to be. Okay, I have a jumper. That's part of my game. And then I think this offseason, he's going to start to piece together like, okay, now that I have gravity as a shooter, right? This is how I can play off of that gravity. How much further do you think Evan can go? And I think the reason this team is such a hard team to throw a comp to when it comes to other teams, Evan Mobley's just a unicorn. Okay, yeah. Like there's really not a player that's like Evan, right? Because he has a really good eye for passing out, especially when he drives. He's starting to become more aggressive. He has a perimeter game now a little bit. He just smacked a face-up 3 in front of Scotty Barnes like the other day, who I am convinced he legitimately does not like. And it's hard to put a finger on like who Evan Mobley is because like his game is just so rare. You'll hear all kind of comps from like Tim Duncan to Kevin Garnett, which is a wild range.
Yeah. I've been loving the Chris Bosh comparisons making a return just because he is starting to space the floor a little bit and he's so good at driving to the rim. Like that's one area of the game where I know we all wanted to see the 3-point shot because it helps you space the floor and it just looks pretty. And don't get me wrong. I mean, he's like tripled his 3-point shooting. He's not one of the best shooters in the league, but he's made such a huge leap from last year. There's really not much to complain about there. He's shooting above 40%. He's only taking about 3 a game, but we're basically at the point now where it never feels like Evan Mobley is passing up a 3-point shot, whether it's in the corner or above the break. Like you said, he'll just face up and shoot a 3 over someone from above the break. And we didn't see stuff like that before. So it's added a whole new layer to his game. The thing that's important about that, and I kind of hit on this earlier, is now teams are closing out to him even when he's at the top of the 3-point line. Woo. And guess what? The dude can put the ball on the floor. And if he gets to the middle of the floor, you've seen it. He can throw it down with the left hand over Andre Drummond. Or he can go to the right hand, which is his strong hand. He can finish either way. And that's not an option when you're coming out of the baseline. It is an option when you're driving from the top of the key and opponents are trying to close out to you. So it's hard to find. You can
have somebody just cut behind it too, so he could just find it.
Oh, yeah, the playmaking.
Yeah. So
I mean, he's doing it all.
It is incredible what he could turn out to be. And look, 41% shoot on 3 shots. Like that, they used to be like guard numbers back in the day. Like, but it's crazy that like that's not even like, oh yeah, your center's doing that. It's not even a big deal anymore. But that's where we're at. And then again, I feel like I have the need to reiterate this. This is one of the best defensive players on planet Earth.
Yeah, it gets overlooked. We spend so much time nitpicking every aspect of his offense that we just take for granted that, yeah, he's like at worst the 3rd best defender in the NBA. Like I think you could argue he's number 1, but at worst he's like top 3. I mean, and he usually with that type of player, you think of like the other best defenders in the NBA. Think of someone like Rudy Gobert. If Rudy Gobert was giving you 20 points per game, you'd be like, oh, this dude is unbelievable. And like anything Rudy Gobert gives you on offense, you're just like, thank you. That was a blessing. With Evan Mobley, he just does it every night. I mean, and I know you mentioned how many hockey assists do they average per game. So I pulled that up because I was curious too. Right now, the Cavs are 3rd in hockey assists. But the thing that stands out to me the most, Evan Mobley among front court players is in the top 10. And that's important because if you look at the guys ahead of him, it's Jokic, Sabonis, Sengun, Randall, Embiid. Those are guys who have the ball like every possession of the game. Mobley is 3rd on his team in touches, and he's 10th in hockey assists. And so he's not averaging as many as assists as I would love. I think he's only at 3 per game. I think at his peak, we could see him near 5 or even 6 per game. That's where that Draymond comparison comes back to, because he might not be able to make like Draymond, but at his peak, could he get to like 70 or 80% of what Draymond was doing? And then, of course, you add in the fact that he's leaps and bounds better as a scorer than Draymond ever was. And so, again, the defense, the playmaking, the scoring, the super high IQ as well. Like, I don't know if you saw that Toronto game yesterday, but there was
touching the ball on the rim.
Dude, I've never seen a player, for anyone who didn't watch that game, the Cavs had to shoot like a desperation 3 with like 1 second on the shot clock. Evan Mobley catches the air ball, and rather than trying to bring it down or get it back up for a shot, he just smacks it against the rim with 2 hands because there wasn't enough time to get a shot off. So he just hit it against the rim to reset the shot clock. And I don't remember how that possession ended, but I've never seen a player make that decision in real time.
That was a big possession because I think
it was in the fourth
pretty
quarter.
much put the game away after that one, right? Like, and another one, right, where he got the ball at the end of the shot clock, and I think he shot the 3 that, like, I was like, there's no shot they're hitting the rim, right? And he hit the rim there on like a desperation 9-1-1-3, but that was the one where like the Cavs got the ball back, but they had to challenge. And
Donovan Mitchell against OKC.
Then Darius got the layup on the other end to kind of close out the game there. And it's like, it's these little things that he does, and like we've gotten so used to pointing out the little things offensively where he's making a leap that like we also forget that as good as this team is offensively, which, like, I mean, they're one of the best offenses in NBA history right now.
Yeah.
Like, it's not even an open.
I think they're number 1 in offensive rating, which can be a little bit of a goofy stat in the modern era, but it's worth something.
Yeah, it is. It's one of the better offensive ratings of the decade. If I think what Danny Cunningham putting out something like that. So it is a really good number for the Cavs there, and they did this against the number 1 defense in the NBA in Oklahoma City. Now, again, they didn't have Chet, but they haven't had Chet for a while. So it's not like it's invalid what they were able to do. But also, I could make the argument that for like half the season, the Cavs were kind of underperforming defensively. Like,
it took them a while.
Yeah, like the thing, 3rd and 15-0 streak, I'm like, man, we are not playing as good defense as we used to. And then they lost those 2 games versus Atlanta, and I don't know what happened. They had like those 4 days off. They came back, and I was like, they are playing defense now. And they are so much better when they play defense. And this was a team that had like a 2-loss record, like at the
time. Yeah. I think during that first 15 win streak, we were probably somewhere near like the middle of the league in defensive rating, which, considering the Cavs have been, I think, top 5, maybe even top 3 in defense the last 3 seasons, like that seemed like a regression. But now they're back to, I think, 8th in defensive rating. And hey, man, when you're the best offense in the NBA and you're a team that already, like, listen, man, there's no doubt in my mind, wherever they finish in defensive rating, there's no doubt in my mind that when these guys need to lock in defensively, they can do it. Because that's the one thing they've established the last 3-4 seasons is that, yeah, we're an elite defensive team, but guess what? Now we're also the best offense in the NBA. And so it changes everything. And one more note on Evan Mobley when we're talking about the IQ, because on the defensive end, you really see it pop too. Whenever he blocks a shot, it's like he's already 2 steps ahead of the play, because in his mind, he already knows he's going to get the block. What he's focused on is, which way am I hitting the ball? Am I hitting it out to the 3-point line because Darius is there? Am I hitting it to myself? Like, he's already, it's a predetermined fact that he's going to block his opponent's shot. To him, he's thinking, where can I tap this ball to get a fast break started? And so watch any of his blocks, 9 times out of 10, he's hitting it straight to a teammate, or he's just catching it himself. And that's unbelievable to be processing the game at that speed.
Yeah, he's not even Dwight Howard in it, where he just smacks the hell out the ball, just to like make it look cool.
He's strategically blocking it.
Yeah, I think he did that to Hartenstein at the end of the game, right? Hartenstein went to the cup, and he just like, it was like a little pop. Like, I was like, did he block it? Was it a steal? I think it went down as a block. And I was like, wow, like they just do all of these small things so well, this Cavs team. I mean, we talked about Evan. He's averaging less minutes than he did last year by like a 0.2 of a minute, right? But he's averaging like 4 more points than he did last year. Like, the efficiency is there. This is incredible. We haven't even been able to talk about the fact that like Donovan Mitchell has played his best basketball in his career as a Cleveland Cavalier, which like that was a worry when you made the trade because he was a volume scorer and you were worried about the efficiency carrying over as he ages. That doesn't seem like it's an issue. And now you get this thing where it's like, hey, you have been able to play so many guys and win so many games like this that you might be able to get to 60 wins super early. And maybe you want to go for the 73 wins, maybe you don't, right? But you're going to be in a position where you could come in and have Donovan Mitchell. I mean, he might just feel like he's in February by the time that you get to the playoffs. And the same thing with Darius, who like, when Darius needs to score, I think people forgot Darius is a bucket. Got 40 last night, just to remind everybody. And can we also end another narrative? Can we stop this nonsense about Darius Garland not being good in clutch situations?
He's best clutch player in the NBA. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, what like a 9-to-1 turnover ratio in clutch minutes. I think somebody had to clarify. It's hard to tell because the Cats just blow out everybody.
You don't get to see him in those situations often. But
that's why I was
even the NBA.
I wasn't even mad with how close that Toronto game was because I'm like, I think we need to have close games, right? Like
get some reps,
get some use in there. Like, all right, Darius, let's see what you got in the clutch, right? Played well in that national TV game. I knew he was straight off the bat because he just like cashed the 3 in the corner, like to start the game off balance. I was like, and he did the little finger gun thing. I'm like, oh yeah, he's here.
He was confident. He's played with so much confidence, man.
And I want to speak to one other thing. Look, we talk about the vibes being elite. We got to talk about the vibe captain. Look, if there's a vibe Hall of Fame, Tristan Thompson's got to be in it, man.
I knew it. I knew you were going to say TT.
Tristan Thompson's got to be in it because he's breathing that fire into Darius Garland, right? He is the guy that's like, no, you are an all-star. No, you are like that. Yeah, you should be compared to this guy. You are up there with Kyrie. And I think that's important to have on the team. And this team just built so well. And it's just really like it's close to perfect as a Cavs team can be built for the regular season, like for a fan, because you're like, oh, you got the connection to the old shit with Tristan Thompson, which again makes me feel old that Tristan Thompson is definitely the connection to the old thing. But you have that, you have the new stuff. These are developed guys here. I mean, like Jared Allen feels as much as a Cavalier as he ever did a Brooklyn Net. Honestly, he feels more at home in Cleveland. Same thing with guys like Harris, right? Who like sneakily been here a very long time. Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell at this point feels like a Cav more than he felt like a Utah Jazz. It has been a interesting evolution of this team. Ty Jerome comes in, I think, with the last 2 games, makes some clutch buckets. I know some people were concerned about his role because it got a little bit reduced once everybody got back healthy. What do you see him settling into as we get closer and closer to playoffs?
Yeah, I think we have seen him start, especially the last few games, start to settle into what I would expect from him. November was crazy. That was like, I mean, I don't think anyone expected Ty Jerome to come in shooting 70% on like pull-up 3-pointers. I mean, that was an unreal month. So
he was
we knew
smacking threes off screens like Steph. Like I'm not like literally coming off of it in midair shooting that shot. Like Steph does that, bro. Like why are you shooting that? And it's going in.
He was just pulling from like the logo on not even like a heat check moment. It's like he just checked into the game and he's pulling it from almost half court and it's going in. So Ty Jerome, the November version of Ty Jerome was unbelievable. He started to dip a little bit. You know, the shooting was always going to come down. He was never going to shoot 70% the way that he was. But I think now we're seeing it finally regress to like, he's a quality piece who comes off the bench. He's going to give you some backup guard minutes, whether that's, you know, the backup guard or the 3rd string guard, whatever it is, you can rely on him to come in. He's going to bring energy on defense. He's tough. I think that's one thing that's helped. He's super physical on both ends of the floor, which is something that the Cavs have needed on their bench. And when he's got it going, we've seen he can give you, like against OKC, I think he had 6 or 7 points in the 4th quarter. And those are really important. Like he just finds a way to get things done. And again, in years past, the Cavs didn't have that. They didn't have that in their backup point guard. I think Ty Jerome, what I want from him is just to be that steady contributor off the bench. Maybe he's not scoring 20, but can he give you like 8 points and 3 assists and 12 minutes of playing time? That's pretty damn good.
And even with Ty Jerome be having these like 3 of 10 nights from the floor, one of them three gonna be a big shot. Like,
Yeah,
like
he's
he
no
just
fear of
has
the
that
moment.
knack for it. And the thing, here's what I see Ty Jerome being. In the playoffs, where like the game's going one way, and then all of a sudden, some dude checks in the bench,
Momentum shifter,
and then he gets 25 at home, and it's like, what is going on? And you just got home playoff games, right?
Yep.
Ty Jerome. Like Bobby Portis, I think is the most famous person to have done this, because like that is literally what Bobby Portis does, is check into playoff games at home, goes off for 20, gets the crowd to chant Bobby, 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 and then like you don't hear from him again for like another series. That is going to be Ty Jerome, bro. Like Ty's going to check in, and he might not even be in the 8-man rotation, right? Like we don't know what that's going to look like.
Yeah.
But they might be like, Kenny might be like, we need a spark. Let's put Ty in. And then Ty goes off for like 30, and then everybody's like, what the just happened? Yeah. Like that to me screams like, when Ty Jerome does that, you're gonna think of me, because I'm gonna be like, see, I told y'all that's exactly what Ty gonna do in the playoffs.
You've been right about a lot so far, so I'll be waiting for it. The crazy thing about that too, just real quick, is like the Cavs have a couple guys who could do that. Like if Karis LeVert came off the bench and gave you 30 in a playoff game, you wouldn't be shocked. If Max Strus stays on the bench, he could give you 25, 30 in a playoff game. And then, of course, we just mentioned Ty Jerome. It's like, again, we've said it the whole episode, their depth. It's a huge key to why they're playing so good. Of course, you have the core four, but across the board, Kobe Altman's done a fantastic job rounding out this roster. Like they got Ty Jerome. Nobody thought Ty Jerome could do this. Kobe Altman did. And we're seeing it pay off.
Hey, could you imagine if George Niang gives you them Bobby Portis minutes?
That start the parade, get the parade organized. And the moment Niang starts playing like Bobby Portis,
he gives you like 15 off the bench in like a big game 6, and we're like, he's just gonna be here now, dog. Yeah. Like
that would be life changing.
Yeah, and then like he's talking cash money, like how he does too, like. We're setting ourselves up for some hilarious moments here for the Cavs, but like, yeah, I don't know who else needed permission to like feel like the Cavs are for real.
Yeah, to get a little carried away with it. I think we earned it.
Yeah, no, I mean like this team is exactly what they appear to be, and the record is 33-4. 33-4.
Yeah.
And I think collectively in the build up to this game, it was hilarious to watch. It was like people on ESPN were like, the Cavs are what? Wait, the Thunder are what? They're 30-5, and then they meet up, and people are like, well, let's see if they're actually that good. And then they play a game that I contend can only happen when the two best teams in the sport are playing. Like, we have seen games like that where the shot making is incredible. It's been elevated. Cavs, Warriors, Christmas Day was a game like that. And I'm not even just talking about the NBA. I'm talking about just basketball in general. I think the Cavs and Spurs had a game like that when LeBron first came back.
Yeah, when
right?
Kyrie
and Bron both
shot.
had like 50 or something crazy like that, which was a completely different style of basketball. And then like both the LSU Iowa games in the women's Final Four were like that, where you're like, these are the best two teams.
It's a different type of basketball when you get the two best, because like the Cavs Thunder, it's like the best offense versus the best defense, and they absolutely lived up to that hype of that matchup. It was on paper, it looked like an all-time matchup, and guess what? On the court, it looked like it too. It was an unbelievable game.
You will never have more of an appreciation for how hard it is to play NBA basketball than watching the shots both teams had to make in that game.
Yeah.
Like, especially the shit Shai was making, Shea was making, like, it was just crazy. Some of these shots, because like they put Evan and Jared on him at times, and Jared was keeping up with them. That's underrated. Like, Jared was out there on the perimeter kind of keeping up, which like, that is where like the Chris Bosh comps kind of break down for me, because like Chris Bosh was never getting on that perimeter and like guarding
not like that.
Yeah, not like that. Like he might get up there and like pick up somebody, like keep a cushion, but like in the face, like,
yeah,
like
face
straight,
guarding them,
not
staying with them the
worried,
whole way.
yeah, not worried about a blow by or nothing like that. That's different, right? That is what Evan Mobley provides, and even when he was like giving him some really tough looks, they were making it. Who was the man? I forget his name. He had the straight back braids. His father was in the military.
Williams.
Yeah.
Yeah. He had like you're talking about, he hit that deep corner 2-pointer, which I haven't seen someone take that in years. And then he hit like a one leg. He looked like Paul Pierce. He was like taking one-legged mid-range shots. That was unbelievable. The shot making from both teams was just ridiculous. Lou Dort hit that, like he fell down on his way to the basket and banked it in. I was like, this is just, you can only have magic like that when you have the two best teams in basketball playing each other.
Yeah, it was incredible. And both these teams have a bright future. Oklahoma City, they have enough like assets to do even more to that roster. I don't even know if you even want to take advantage of it.
Yeah, I mean they have a stockpile of draft assets they could trade. Like they could trade for Cam Johnson. They got so many things they could do.
Bro, Paul George. Got them.
Man.
Paul George brought on, and right now Paul George is like on the 76ers.
Just wasting away. Yeah, they did a fantastic job building that team, and it's crazy how much more I don't even know off the top of my head, but I'm sure they have like 5 or 6 draft picks that they could move at a moment's notice.
Or they might use it. Like
or they could just keep building. They'll just keep drafting new stars.
They just use it. Take the top guy to draft, just get another guy there, right? It's incredible. I would love for the Cavs and OKC to be the NBA's next successor to Cavs Warriors, because we really haven't had a successor since then. Maybe that could be it for there. And now you're gonna get, because that game was so good, and they follow it up with another banger, everybody in the NBA is going to be like,
rematch.
Yeah, everybody in the NBA is going to be like, those two teams need to play in the finals. And it's going to be this big war of like, no, it needs to be Boston. And I don't know who's a big market that can even come out the West right now. It's definitely not LA.
Man, no, I mean, I guess it's like, is Dallas maybe the biggest market? Because like LA is not going to make it. Golden State's not going to make it.
No.
I feel like Dallas is probably bigger than Memphis.
No, Memphis,
right? I'd assume Dallas has a big, because Luka helps having a Luka size star.
Is what Houston?
Yeah, probably
maybe.
Dallas. I don't know. I don't know if I believe in Houston first off, but I also I think Dallas might be a bigger market. I don't know. That's a good question.
Who's the 2 seed in the West?
Right now, I think it's Houston. It's very jumbled though. It's like one game separates them.
It's literally like Cavs, Thunder, and then like everybody else is tied for the 2 seed. But
yeah, the West is a mess. I'll look at the standings real quick. Houston's number 2, Memphis number 3, Denver 4, Dallas 5, and then it's like after that, like I don't believe LA, as much as I would love LeBron to compete for another title, I don't think they can make it. So OKC looks like they can just run away with that conference.
And then, like, if you're the Cavs, you might luck out, and like New York and Boston have to take care of each other before they get to you. If you take care of your business, right?
It would be so helpful.
Just take care of the winner of the Magic Bucks series or something like that,
yeah.
Or what? It's probably going to be the Pacers who could probably challenge for the 5, because I imagine the Miami Heat are going to probably
trade Jimmy and fall off a little bit.
You think the 76ers is going to make it back in?
I think they could, just because the bottom of the East is so abysmal. But like, I'm not trying to get carried away, like I said, but there's only New York worries me, Boston worries me, Milwaukee very, very slightly worries me, just because Giannis is like an absolute world beater. But I feel confident that they could beat Boston, they could beat New York. I feel good against Milwaukee. After that, there's not a team that even makes me blink twice. I'm like, they're taking care of Philly, I think, pretty easily. Indiana, no question, they're taking care of that. Orlando, could be interesting, but they've been injured, they've been banged up. I don't know if they'll be able to pull it together this year, but the Cavs have as good a chance. Yeah, he's coming back. I think he may have just came back yesterday or this week. So he surprised me with how quickly he came back. But they have you go down their roster, like everyone's dealing with an injury, so they might not be able to pull it together.
The Wagners.
yeah, just back to back.
Yeah, it's tough. It'd be nice to get JB in that AFC.
That would be fun. That would be a fun first round matchup. Pistons versus Cavs.
I feel so bad for JB because like I think you could make a legitimate argument for him being coach of the year this year.
He's doing a hell of a job.
But the biggest counter argument is that the team that fired him.
Yeah. It's like if Kenny Atkinson wasn't doing this,
well,
people would be hyping JB up.
It'd be one thing if like the Cavs traded for LeBron and then they were 33-4, right? Like
it's the
like,
same squad.
The thing that people are talking about is they didn't change anything but coach. And then they did this, and it's like the best argument for you is like, hey man, look what you did to Detroit. And then the worst argument for you is, hey dog, are we not looking at this team that might win 70 games that you was the coach of last year?
It's unfortunate, man. JB would be getting a lot of flowers right now, and I think he is, but still, like he'd be getting more credit if the team he left wasn't on a 73 win pace.
Yeah, I wonder how that plays in Detroit. Like, are they just going to be appreciative of what he brings? Yeah. Or are they going to keep that in the back of their mind? Because, like, now he got the Mark Jackson question on him. Like, what if the Cavs will win a championship this year? What if they win 2, right? And it starts looking like Mark Jackson, Steve Kerr again. It's like, bro, it's going to be so – he's going to be on television.
Yeah, it's like he's the guy who can establish the culture, but like how high is his ceiling? How far can he take you? That's the question he has to answer.
Yeah, and there's no worse tag to have on you than that. You gotta do all the hard work of building up a core out of a dysfunctional setting, and then right when they get ready to win, you about to get fired. You get one season when they ready to win to do it all, or else people gonna look at you like, see, you just can't get it done with JB. And I'm like, this it's such a unfair thing because he's such a young coach, right? Like, I think he'll figure it out, get better. And like, I think with Detroit, they're not gonna have so much success so early. Like, I think that's what happened with the Cavs. They got better faster than anybody expected.
Yeah.
I mean, like, just every year they're doing something that surprises us, right? Even last year where they were able to win games throughout those injuries. And that put them in a place where, like, that year that they played New York, the expectations were probably much higher than we thought they should have been. Yeah. And let's be real, kind of went into that series underestimating New York, right? Like, definitely didn't go into that series thinking that New York would be in the top 3 conversation in the East for like the next 4 or 5 years. That was not what we were thinking at the time about New York. And he just ran into that wall. He happened to be the team that figured it out on them. Would have had to figure that one out on New York.
Yeah.
And it looked really bad in front of, and it was like New York's first playoff series after the pandemic. It was a horrible spot to have a bad series. And he has been suffering the brunt of that. And then Jared Allen like got the meme in off of that, but yeah, look, the lights are bright on Wednesday, and we'll see what happens once the playoffs start, right? Because, I mean, if you're playing this kind of basketball, the lights don't even start to get bright in round 1 anymore. You're talking about round 2, round 3. That's like you're going to be playing NBA TV games in the first round, more than likely. So this is where it's going to be. What do you think the win-loss record ultimately settles at? Because I think we're both in agreement 70 is crazy.
70's just, I mean, there's only 2 teams I think off the top of my head that have won 70, so like that's wishful thinking. I'm rooting for it, but my number, I just want them to hit 65. I want them to hit 65. They hit that, I mean, listen, if you told me at the beginning of the season, I think I picked them to win like 57 games. So, like, even if they just win 60, I'll be happy.
So many wins. 57 is a lot.
It's crazy, man. Yeah. So right now I'm hoping they can hit 65. But I mean, even if they end up with 60, dude, like that's a one hell of a season.
You went over 65 games. That's like one of the best seasons in your franchise's history, right? Like, what's the Cavs' best record?
Oh, I know the 2000. I think the 2019 maybe 166. I think that's their record, but only 21 teams in NBA history have won 65 or more games. So it's like you're in pretty good company right there. I think the 2019 like 166,
and like 4 of them are the Warriors dynasty teams.
Yeah, they were just racking them up there.
It was like, well, I think 3 straight years they won 67 plus games.
Something insane. I don't remember off the top of my head.
I would have to remember how many games they won in 2014, 15 when they won that first not national championship. I'm on
Here,
football.
yeah, no,
But
you're right. I got it. They won 67 in 2015, 73 in 2016, and then 67 in 2017. So that's got
yeah.
to be. I'm sure that's a record. That's
Yeah.
unbelievable.
Yeah, they took a break that third year and
Yeah,
only won like 57 games, something
yeah.
like that.
I think
Right?
they had some injuries. They're like, we're good. We just need to get to the playoffs at this point. We don't need to try that hard.
Yeah, because that was the second year they beat Bron with KD, right? That was
Mm,
the
yeah,
incredible Bron year.
2018. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's like Cavs are doing some incredible shit. And like I say this all the time, I don't want to get too bogged down with like having super high expectations. Next season, you're gonna have to deal with that, right? Like whatever this team does, the expectations are gonna be through the roof for this team.
Yeah.
But this season, you just get to enjoy it happening. And
Yeah.
you don't get this often as a fan where you get to watch a team grow and blossom. Just enjoy it, right? Don't argue with folks about if it's real or not. If they can't see it, that's their problem. Their lack of imagination
Exactly.
is not your problem, right? Just enjoy it. You are watching something incredible that is offering you on 3 nights a week a pretty fun experience, like a good bet to like be like, yeah, that was fun. Like they haven't lost since what, November? Like
I think maybe like December 1st. It's been a minute because I know they
yeah.
lost to Miami at the start of December.
Oh,
But
the
I mean,
back-to-back against
since
Miami.
then,
That was
yeah,
the last game. Yeah. Yeah. They haven't taken like a real true L since the Atlanta game where I'm like, all right, that had nothing to do with the schedule. They just lost.
yeah,
Right.
they just got beat right there.
Yeah. And even then, those are the games before and after Thanksgiving. You could argue schedule might have had to play in that, right? Which straight up, that just tells you what kind of team you have there, that you could point to the Celtics game and be like, it's only like true loss you feel like they took. And they should have won that game.
Yeah, they were right in it. They were right in it. Got probably the worst game of Darius Garland's career, and you were still right in it. And then you flip that, you get a really bad game from Mitchell against OKC, and you end up winning. So it's like even when one piece of the score isn't on, they could still find a way to get it done against the best teams in the league.
We should do an ESPN first take segment. Hey, look, they didn't win when Darius Garland didn't show up, but they did win when Donovan Mitchell.
Are they better with Darius?
Should they trade Donovan Mitchell?
Yeah, that's thankfully we don't have those narratives yet. Everyone's just like you said, we're just enjoying it right now.
Yeah, but definitely just enjoy this, Cavs fans, because this is a lot of people don't get to experience their team doing something like this, right? Like this is special stuff. So make sure before you argue with folks online or try to like argue with yourself about if this team's legitimate, ask yourself, hey, you're having a good time. Like, because you should be. This should be a good ass time, and we'll worry about the playoffs when the playoffs happen. But look, man, this don't look like a team that should fold in the playoffs. Like everybody who had those takes 2 years ago ended up being right. They aren't saying that this year, right? Like, so that tells you everything that you need to know there. And I do think that playoff victory versus Orlando looks way better now than it did last year. Like,
dude, Orlando's legit. Like when they're healthy, that's a legit squad. We managed to fight them for 7 games and come out on top.
Yeah, and I said this at the time. Hey, Paolo's great.
He's a superstar. I mean, once he's healthy again, people will see it. They were starting to learn. I mean, he's a legit superstar in the making.
Yeah, he's really, really good, right? And this next crop of superstars is going to be interesting. But Tony, thank you for joining us to just talk about the Cavs, right? You know, just a 1 hour. Let's just have fun talking about the Cavs session. Get all of our takes off. Get our victory laps off. Is there anything else that you want to get off? Is there any islands that you've been living on that you want to promote? Is this the time to say that a coral island will pay off eventually?
No, I won't go to any islands. I think this player is a little too big to have an island, but I would just like to say, because we kind of glossed over him a little bit, Jared Allen. He's having a great season. And the biggest thing about him that I think we need to focus on, you look at basically outside of the Boston games, every time the Cavs have had a big matchup, this dude has stepped up against Jokic both times. I won't say he dominated Jokic. You know, Jokic is going to get his numbers one way or another, but Allen, fantastic games. Against the Lakers, fantastic game against AD. The Thunder, crushed them. Even against Toronto, who's not, a great team, but like on the second night of the back-to-back, he steps up again. So give Jared Allen his flowers. He's been incredible. I don't know if the Cavs will get 4 All-Stars, but they definitely will get 3, I think. And Jared Allen has a case as the 4th, depending on how many injury replacements. So shout out to Jared Allen. We love the fro. Had to get that in there. And thanks for having me on, man. It's always great to talk Cavs.
Yeah, injury replacements are commissioner, right?
Yeah, I think so. It's a little strange. So we'll
The
see.
bench
We'll see
is
how
the
many spots
coach
open up.
because
Yeah,
the
the
coach
benches, the
chooses the
reserves, of the
bench.
coach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like if the coaches were in charge of the injury replacement, Jared Allen would get in.
Yeah, I think the coaches respect because they're the ones who have the game plan for him. So they're like,
Yeah.
we know how difficult he is.
And coaches love Darius Garland, so he's probably going to get in on the
Yeah,
reserve.
I think Garland has, especially that 40-point game yesterday, like the big game against OKC. I think him and Mobley are basically that agenda is getting bulletproof at this point. I don't know how you could omit them from the All-Star game.
And like, I don't know what it is about Darius's game, but he has that kind of game. It's the same thing with Kyrie, where like people in basketball are much higher on them
Yes.
than like people outside of it, where they're like, no,
Mhm.
man, that guy's great. Like Darius
Yeah.
Garland, like what I've heard multiple guys be like, yeah, I couldn't guard Darius Garland no more. That's when I decided to retire. Right?
Draymond said that in like 2019. So this is like way before. Like Draymond was like, yeah, he's the toughest dude in the league to guard. So you're right. I mean, the ball knowers, they see it with DG.
He got that like it's like a rapper who got bars, but like not really like a commercial flow. Like he got that Joey Badass about him.
Yeah.
Where it's like, yeah, man, that's one of the toughest out, right? Like that MF Doom shit. But it's like maybe not the commercial appeal, but Kyrie kind of was like the best of both worlds because that's the ultimate hooper's hooper, right? Like everybody, LaMelo's favorite player, definitely Kyrie.
Yeah, for sure.
But,
yeah, both.
Yeah, and then if you go like a coach like loves to point at a player and he's like, you need to do it like him, that's Jared Allen. Like Jared Allen is the coach's favorite player, right? So we'll see what happens here with the All-Star game. I hope Jared Allen gets some kind of recognition because I think he does this. Like he's had 2 years better than the 1 year he made the All-Star game, which is like kind of crazy to think about. But like this year's definitely better than that first year. He deserves to be in the All-Star game. We'll see if hopefully that can happen for him. We get him to San Francisco. But yeah, man, awesome talking Cavs with you. Make sure you go follow Tony Pesto on Twitter. Also, make sure you follow him on YouTube. Go subscribe to his channel. Anywhere else people can find you?
That's about it. I also do on Playback, we do live Cavs watch parties. That's under the Fear the Sword name. So basically, if you just find me on YouTube or Twitter, you'll find links to everything. So thanks again for having me on, man. This was a great yap session.
We needed it. Cavs won that game, and I'm like, see, this is why I booked Tony for Friday. Right?
Perfect timing.
I was like, we're going to let a couple games get in. That's how confident I was like, they're going to beat OKC. Right? But appreciate you, man. Everybody have a great day. Have a better night. Peace.